You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 319 of East Central's favorite podcast. Jeremiah Morrill, joined by the guy that restored internet to the entire city of Newcastle today, producer Zach Burcham. Your AV technology skills are award-winning. And my forever co-host, Mr. Dakota Davis.
Today's episode features the Newcastle City Council at-large candidates who are running to represent all of the city of Newcastle. They are Lynn Perdew, Rex Peckinpaugh, and then to my left, Mr. Ed Hill. We're going to be talking to them, getting to know them a little bit about what their motivations are to run for office. And then, like the other city council candidate interviews, we will be talking to them about economic growth, infrastructure in the city of Newcastle, community engagement and transparency, and then at the very end of the show, we will be asking them if they were king of the city for a day, what they would like to do, add, or take away with no repercussions.
If they don't say annex Spiceland, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Make sure you stick around until the very end of the show if you want to hear what that's all about.
This show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you, other times we'll make you laugh, but hopefully you'll always learn something new. We just did ourselves, 10, 15 minutes on bugs and fire in the Patreon.
And that's all that you will know about it unless you sign up at patreon.com/bosshogofliberty. That is where you can go to support the show financially every month. That's how we pay for the bills in the studio. That's how we pay for the rent of the studio. And it's also where you can go to get your bonus content. So you get about 15 to 20 minutes of bonus content every single week that our guests participate in. You also get show notes before the show starts, and then you get access to a Facebook group that is for you only. They start out at only $5 a month, very cheap, very affordable we are, and then they go up to $50 a month, and if you do $50 a month, then you get a shout out at the front of every episode, and those folks are Miss Christy Avery from all the way in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Mr. Jonathan Phillips, and then Mr. Anthony Meyer. Thank you especially to those folks.
Also do need to give a special thank you to the folks, our corporate sponsors, I suppose, for the candidate series. As always, Wyland's Flowers has been involved with the candidate series since the very beginning. The official florist of the podcast and all of our weddings. And Zach's anniversaries. Zach buys flowers like once a week. He's much more attentive than we are.
He's just in trouble a lot more.
Yeah. It's what coaching and podcasting gets him into.
Yeah, whatever.
And the land bank.
Yeah. Always, it's my ticket out of the doghouse.
and Slick Pinnacle Sanitation will bring a dumpster by if things go horribly, horribly wrong. All right, let's get to know the candidates that we have here. Dakota has introduced them. We'll start with Lynn. You currently are serving on the city council now.
I am.
Lynn Perdew. So tell us about yourself, your bio, your background, and whatever you want to start us off.
Okay. I'm in the final year of the second term of council. Been in Newcastle my entire life. Been self-employed since I was 26 years old. I've had several businesses in town, but most noticeably has been the heating and cooling for 40 plus years. I think I've been in probably 50-60% of the homes in Newcastle. Just, my job took me there all over the town. So
you were invited in. You didn't right. break your way into all these houses.
No, they called me. So that's a good thing. So no, I feel like I'm in touch with our entire community. I grew up on the north side of town, and then of course I live down on the south side now, and but I enjoy so much being a community servant. I love this town. I love this community. I've always been involved with youth coaching when my kids were younger and so on, and I just want to continue serving. I think we have a lot of good things going on. I really do. And I want to continue to support those programs and initiatives that we've got started. Most noticeably here lately, and I take a lot of pride in this, is our Trojan Lane. Our council has been very supportive with that project, and I've raised quite a bit of private money for that. And I just every day I get people talking about it. And I think that's wonderful.
Very good. Rex Peckinpaugh, same to you. Who are you?
Well, I was born and raised in Newcastle. Actually, at one point in my life, I lived not far from the great Jeremiah out there on Messick Road. But like I say, I graduated from Newcastle. I went to Perdew, and I came back here, and I was very surprised that they hired me to teach and coach here, because I thought, well, they know me. They won't want me here. But anyway, they hired me, and I taught and I coached here for over 40 years, was pretty successful. And, all my life I've had some involvement in politics. My dad was a county councilman back, in the 70s. And my parents instilled in me the patriotism and the desire to serve your community. My mom and my dad were both pretty good Democrats. My mom was actually more diehard than my dad. My dad, he had served in World War II, but he felt everybody, no matter who they were, ought to vote. And I still remember one day when my dad said, I've got to go over and pick up Mrs. So-and-so. She needs to go vote. Mom said, you don't want to go over and get her. She won't vote for you. She's a Republican. And my dad said, I know she won't vote for him, but she still deserves to vote. And that's kind of what was instilled in me, that we need to be about people and about, that type of thing. But I decided a few years before I retired that I wanted to get involved and run. And I had thought about running for city council at large, but at the time, Dickie Hahn and Vaughn Reed were our at-large counselors, and I felt like they both did a pretty good job. And so I didn't run that particular time. And then the next time, Dickie decided he was going to retire from that job. That time was working in Kokomo more. And so I ran and was elected for the first time. It's a great joy when I go up to somebody's house. About 50% of the time, if I go up to somebody's house and they answer the door, they're going to say, Mr. Peckinpaugh. And they're going to be it's amazing. Most of them are happy to see me because I taught them in school.
If I can add one quick thing about Rex being our wrestling coach. When I would visit someone and talk to them about their heating and cooling needs, a lot of times when they moved to town, I would ask them, what brought you to Newcastle? And this one family, and I was taken aback, but he says, you're a wrestling coach? I said, really? He said, no, we wanted our son to wrestle for Rex Peckinpaugh. So, Rex, kudos to you, buddy. I mean, you've been growing our community for a long time.
Well, I think all three of us have grown up here, did a lot here. And, it's like you said, it's an honor. We love the place. It's an honor. We love the place. And, we're blessed to be here, too.
Yes, we are. Very good.
All right, Ed. Good luck.
My background is in engineering. I've been a public servant since I was graduated high school, actually. Started over at Muncie, come here in 2000. Just tried to help the city with those things, design work and surveying and those things. I belong to a lot of community groups. I belong to Main Street and Land Bank with Zach over here and Hope Initiative. And I just kind of want to take that and take it to the next level, more or less, just in the council.
What kind of engineering you into?
Civil engineering.
Civil engineering.
Yeah. Did a lot of sewer work over at Muncie. It was the Muncie Sanitary District, so we did all the design work for the sewer system over there. When I come here, when I first started here, I was used for that a lot more than I was in later years. But there were two storm sewers that I designed here. I actually, as a volunteer with Jeff Ray, we surveyed the phase 2 of the Wilbur Wright Trail, and I provided the plans for that. I drew the plans up and designed that.
Oh, very cool. Have you been involved in a lot of the trail work?
Just with Jeff. That was the the bigger part.
In Riley or Main Street, Riley School.
Yeah.
You did a lot
Yeah,
there.
I did got the grants for Riley School and the Fitzgerald Trail. I didn't work on any design work with it, either one, but
If somebody can find me a way to get all the way down to Woodbrook, I swear I'll hug you. And I don't care which party you're from.
that's where it was originally supposed to go to Woodbrook.
I know.
Yeah, that was a disappointment when NDOT didn't take care of that.
It was promised to me.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'll just take chances on getting run over by a car. It's fine. I live on Jeffrey Street, right across from Woodbrook, so
it would have ended there.
It's almost walkable.
Yeah.
All right, so let's
sorry.
go ahead, Dakota.
As I say, let's just keep going with Ed, and let's talk about economic growth and small business. And I just kind of want to get your guys' feel on the council's role in the economic growth of the city and what your personal opinion is on how you can attract new industries, support small businesses, and things of that nature.
I think the council would have to provide the tools. I think groups like the EDC and Main Street, they're doing great stuff. They're bringing businesses in. We just have to provide the tools. I know I've worked with Rex to try to give us a UDO, which is a Unified Development Ordinance. Both of these gentlemen voted for it and funded it. So probably next year we'll have that. That'll be a huge thing because it's going to update our zoning, update our planning, and just make it easier for developers to come in and businesses to come in. They'll know, it'll be easier for them to know what they need to do instead of having to wade through an archaic system. It was our planning and zoning was from the 70s. And so that's those type of things. It's just provide tools. I think that's the main thing we have to do. And of course, be cheerleaders. And I think we all do that. So.
All right, Rex Peckinpaugh, tell us about how you view the role as a city council on economic development and growing.
Well, I want to add to what Ed said about the Unified Development Ordinance. Once that's in place, a person thinking about coming here and opening a business will be able to go online and within about 3 or 4 minutes find everything they need to find. Right now, it's more like probably 3 or 4 weeks because they've got to wade through all this stuff that's not very organized. And then when they get there, it's not even quite correct. So this is going to be huge. I think, Lynn talked about somebody wanting to come here so their kid could wrestle for me. Well, I think one of the biggest things we do right now that will help us with economic development is success breeds success. I think we've had some successes in economic development with Boar's Head and TS Tech and Crown. I think that'll help us, helps us a lot in terms of other businesses seeing them be successful and thinking maybe Newcastle's a good place. We've got a great economic development director in Corey Murphy. He's working all the time to give us opportunities with companies. We also have the opportunity as a city council occasionally to offer tax abatements. I know Lynn's on the committee that kind of checks on some of those things. But we just need, like Ed said, to provide the environment for businesses to come here. As our downtown area is getting better and better, every week or every month you see something else happening. As that gets better, that's going to make us more attractive to businesses because when those people come here, they see life here and they see things going on. They see our parks. Our parks are probably the best they've been in, 20 years or more. I mean, when, 12 years ago, our parks were terrible and now they're pretty nice and there's activity going on there and there's life happening there. And I think those things, as much as anything, help us. Now we do a pretty good job of providing infrastructure to the industrial park and to some different places where businesses would come into. But I think it's just a team effort, and I feel like overall we're pretty good at it. We just got to keep plugging away because the more people that come in and look at us. I used to have to, I might call 20 girls before I would get a date, but I was persistent and I finally got one, So, yeah, occasionally. But it's like that. You just got to keep plugging away and good things happen.
Explain to me how you would call girls. This is new to to those of us born after.
Well, see, nowadays,
What if they answered the phone? It'd be terrifying. And then, or worse,
it was terrifying.
What if their parents answered the telephone?
Exactly. Well, years ago, you had to find a way to get the girl's phone number, because nowadays most of them have got it on Facebook, and nowadays they call the boys, too. But it'd be on Facebook now, but you had to get their phone number, and then you had to get your opportunity to use the phone. Then you had to hope that you and them had the same time available, and it was a little bit of an experience.
It's a challenge, wasn't it?
It's a miracle anybody ever got married.
What's the most frightening thing too is you might only have one phone in the house connected to a wall.
Yeah,
in the hallway.
stretched across the hall.
Yes,
Yeah.
you just had to sit in the hallway and have a conversation.
Yeah.
Well, when I was growing up, I lived out there on Messick Road, and now this was before Jeremiah was even born. But we had a party line.
Man, my mom
So if you were on that thing, and there might be 4 or 5 people listen to you talk to some girl or something. So.
OG group chats.
You gotta have
Exactly.
Yeah.
You gotta have good game to have Mrs. Smith not try to interrupt. All right, Lynn, tell us. We are way off track. Economic growth, small business development. How do you view your role as a city councilman?
Well, our role as city councilman, first of all, we need to support our EDC group. That's what we're there for. We're there for the funding to back anything he wants to try, and more, and a lot. We need to prepare ourselves to be in a position to succeed. We have to do that a lot with matching grant money and different things like that. We have to be a part of that. But really, a lot of times it's coming back to basics. People shop us before we ever know they're looking at us. They come to town, they drive our main streets, they drive around our parks. Not only are they thinking about real estate to locate here, they're thinking about the school systems that their employees can attend. They're thinking about the parks their employees' kids can play in. It's the basic stuff. Keep our main street clean, keep our properties up. It's just an image a lot of times that we need to keep up to make it feel welcoming.
The livability factor.
Absolutely. I told you about it. I used to ask a lot of people about why they chose Newcastle. Several years ago, there was a single mom with 3 kids moved to town. And I said, why'd you choose Newcastle? She was from Atlanta, Georgia. She said, well, I picked Indianapolis first. I couldn't afford it. I came east, got to Greenfield, and had a lot of things going for it. I came to Newcastle. She said, I spent 3 days in Newcastle. And those 3 days I was here, I went around and looked at all your schools. I looked at the churches, and she said, the third thing is your real estate. You're giving her words. She said, you're giving your real estate away. And she said, that's why I chose Newcastle. So see, they're shopping us. We just don't know it. We just have to prepare ourselves to win.
Most people, if we can get them here, we've got a good chance with them. I mean, when 28 years ago, I met Bonnie over in Indianapolis, and somehow I convinced her to marry me, but she was very concerned about moving to Newcastle. And she was over here, maybe it was 2 or 3 months after she had been here, and somebody was talking to her, and she said, I would never go back to Indianapolis. I love Newcastle. And it's not only about, and we've got a lot going for us. I mean, Lynn, Ed will agree, we've got great parks. Our roads, you drive here and you go over to Muncie our roads are good. People may complain, but our roads are good.
They start good, but then those water lines pop, and man, we have to patch them.
We've got issues, but if we can get them here, we've got a good chance to sell them because we have a good product.
So then, Rex, let's start with you. You were talking a little bit about infrastructure, and that's our next topic here. Are there plans to improve the city's infrastructure? How do you view the city council's role in infrastructure and the development of infrastructure? And then also, you talked a little bit about, or Lynn talked more about Main Street and keeping it nice. How do we keep improving our main streets, but also keep the character of the town as we do that?
Well, in terms of infrastructure, one of the big things I have pushed since I've been on council is sidewalks and, of course, trails. Ed and I and Mike Broyles and some other people are on the bike ped committee, and we basically, a lot of times people get on us because we'll spend money on studies, And we found out most every study you can do, for some reason, costs $50,000. But anyway, we did a bike ped plan. People were all on us because we did a bike ped plan. Well, then we leveraged that, and we got the money for the sidewalk out on Riley or on Main Street, and then we got the money for the Fitzgerald Trail. Probably $1.5 million total out of our $50,000 investment. So we're looking all the time for ways to leverage money and get more money from the state. And, that's our money. The state, for some reason, thinks it's their money, but it's really our money because our people paid the taxes that brought it in, but we got to get as much of it as we can. But we've, every year we dedicate $50,000 of riverboat money to, for sidewalks, for people that want to put a sidewalk in front of their house or maybe repair their sidewalk to be able to do that. All they've got to do is apply and use a recognized contractor. We participate. We're just kind of finishing up the stormwater separation that the courts mandated that we do. We'll be paying for that for a number of years still, but we as a council would, if we did any other large projects like with water or sewer, we would probably have to bond those, and we would be involved in voting to bond them or not to bond them. So we spend a lot of time on that. We also, like this year, we took $500,000 of ARP money, added it to our what our Mayor York had set aside in the budget.
The American Rescue Plan funds.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we were able to pave more streets this year than ever before because the council was able to participate. We have been, and Lynn's a part of this, but we have been very diligent in trying to spend our money that we have from American Rescue Plan and Riverboat in a positive way to get as much bang for our buck as possible. But we're always looking for ways to improve our infrastructure, and some of it forces us to improve it, like when you say a water main breaks or something like that.
And Ed, you as a civil engineer, I'm interested to hear your
not an
your
engineer,
opinion
just a
on this.
technician.
I'm gonna say you're a civil engineer.
Okay.
That's stolen valor, Dakota.
Okay.
Yeah. I tell everybody I just play one on TV. So
So, give us your thoughts on the city council and how you can impact infrastructure and development in the city.
it just comes down to funding. These are engineering studies. I would assume that the council has just presented this stuff. I started working on the long-term control plan back when I hired in 2000 from Muncie when I come here, and that was one of the first things we started working on was that stormwater come in 2004. So that's another big thing that's they have to do. Council, they just have to be supportive. I mean, it's these are things that have to be done. Like Rex said, these are mandated. The one thing that the mayor did was he accelerated it. He got a bond and accelerated the long-term control plan, which saves us money in the long run because we're not spending out over 20. I don't know the numbers. It seemed like it was 20 or 25 years out, and he dropped it down to kind of concentrated it into a 15-year period, and I thought that was smart. It gets it done. It gets it out of the way. The only fear is that they say, well, you guys did such a great job. Now, let's, instead of 75% reduction, let's take this up to 90%. And then we have to do it all over again with the study and all that. That's a fear.
So, Ed, you talk about the infrastructure side, and one of the things that we've talked about with the other races that have come through was talking about the State Road 3 corridor and the rehab. Does the city council, do you view any role or interfacing with the state in that project and giving input based on, hey, if you're elected, you're going to represent the city going into it?
Not really. I mean, it's. I know the mayor's been out there on it. Again, when I was working for the mayor, working uptown, I can remember a lot of stuff. I mean, talking about the bike ped committee, one of the things that they talked about was the original plan was to put a 10-foot trail next to the highway down there, all the way out to Walmart. And at first I was a little disappointed it was going to be a sidewalk, but then I find out it's on both sides, and that's like, wow, this is a great deal. It's neat and bad, but we pushed that back then, and but that was that was from the administration side of it. And I'm not sure, other than just voicing an opinion. And
can I add something?
Sure.
It's quite right on most of that. A lot of the infrastructure, the initiation for infrastructure comes from the mayor and the director of public works and our engineering firms, because I don't know, every once in a while I do admit that there are smarter people than me, and I'm not adverse at that. And I listen to those people. As far as State Road 3, I see the whole plan there. In my mind, there's some drawbacks to it. But when it started back, it was actually supposed to be done about 2 years ago. I think NDOT didn't really have the money. But one of the things the city council wanted was sidewalks, because we see people all the time walking in the road. And so the mayor, Dave Barker, I got to give them a lot of credit, because they went to bat for the city, and now we're going to have sidewalks. And so,
let me add real quick.
I'm done with that comment. Anyway.
No, I just wanted to say that when you talked about the folks down there walking, the mayor first asked for crosswalks, and they said, "Well, you can't have crosswalks unless you have a sidewalk." Didn't give us sidewalks, So it was chicken and egg thing, but that's where it's all come from. But
and a lot of it too, technology has moved us to a point where. I remember when they did Broad Street, and we had to redo all the 88 sidewalks on the intersections. Some of those intersections need a GPS app to get through them. Now come to find it,
you could get lost.
Absolutely.
Ramps,
Well, come to find out, the young engineer that did that never stepped foot in town. Everything was done with aerial, pictures and so on. So, sometimes it just takes boots on the ground to find out what the issues are, and I'm sure, like on Road 3, again, I bet when some of those pictures were taken, Culver's and the BMV weren't even there. So now we got a real issue with that. But back on infrastructure, touch a little bit about, our infrastructure is old, and Ed hit it on the point. It comes down to funding. It's a very expensive undertaking. But just like our water, we break a lot of water lines.
Yeah,
we do. It's massive
when
amount.
they do 3,
and
they
it's
use
ridiculous.
That
And
thumper.
I was talking to Greg Phipps when he said, "Lynn, every time we break one of these, it's $25,000 every time we have a water break."
Yep.
Now that just, try and hold his budget intact. He never knows from one day to the other. And
he's you're going to tell him not to fix it? No, he's kind of if
Yeah.
something breaks, it's not a negotiation, right?
And another thing people don't realize sometimes too is how far we have to push water in old water lines. I've owned a lot of properties in town, and I had one down on 11th Street. I could not keep fittings on a hot water heater, so I called down the plant and says, "You guys check the water pressure up here on my meter." So they come up, and you know what the water pressure was on that? 86 pounds water pressure. Greg says, "Lynn," he says, "there's places we've got 100 pounds of water pressure." Well, I'm sorry. Old water lines, and they have to have it that high to push it to the east side,
Right.
But our old water lines, it doesn't take much movement in that soil, and they're going to give. So it's a big problem.
So, to me, I hear, okay, we need more revenue, need more revenue, and it's this chicken and egg thing again. I looked up Stats Indiana says that Henry County, not just even the city of Newcastle, but Henry County had 32 permits for single family homes in the community in the county. I'm sure many of those are in the city of Newcastle. But until you start to grow the tax base and have more people come in, you're not going to get more tax revenue, right?
Correct.
But you also have to have the water and the sewer infrastructure to say, hey, let's add 500 homes on the north side of town or the south side of town.
Well, I know the mayor is working hard out on the north side to get a developer to work with some land we've got out there that would bring in several homes that would be in that. The homes out in Northfield Park are maybe a little out of the reach of some people, but these homes would be more in the reach of a an average American couple, maybe. So.
Yeah. Any other comments on infrastructure before we move on? We good? All right. I could see that the audience is building. Greg Phipps just tuned in. So if he doesn't like something.
Okay, we're going to say something good about him now. Hey, I do want to say, Greg Phipps, and I know Lynn will agree with me, and Ed, our guys that work in that department, man, they deserve all the kudos and slaps on the back you can give them, because they're out at all times of the night and all kinds of weather. Last year on, I think it was either Thanksgiving or Christmas
every
day.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the water's not running. There they are. They're working on it to get it back on for everybody, and everybody ought to thank them if they see them.
All right. So these are not new questions. These are the same topics we've had. So there's not any hot button stuff that's happening just this week. But community engagement and transparency. Ed, I want to start with you. Once again, your role as a city council member, a prospective city council member, how do you plan to use the office to communicate how you view what's happening on the city council in ways the city can be more open or transparent for the people of the town?
Just talking with people, just answering questions. There's a lot of people that have my phone number. I used to, like working with the city, I'd get calls, people come in and would sit down and try to figure it out. I'd call who needed to be called and those type of things. So I would just continue that.
We've had some candidates that have come through and said, "Hey, I'm going to talk to people in my, in the district." Do you anticipate when ordinances come forward, things happen, that you're going to be polling or handling it like a direct democracy, or is it, hey, if you elect Ed, these are Ed's core values, and this is what you're going to get?
Well, I don't know that I'm smart enough to poll, so I don't know that I could do that. I could ask the questions. Certainly.
All right, Lynn, the idea of transparency.
And I've heard a couple of guys say they, go door to door and ask questions. My feeling on that is they elected me to represent them in council and make informed decisions. We are informed. The council is. We hear all the pros and the cons of different ways, and I feel like that. We've got our city and our citizens in best interest, and we will make the decisions that we feel. And as far as transparency, council meetings are open to everyone. We advertise it when they are. The time frames, or we welcome them to come. I wish that the council quarters were full, every second, third, or first and third Monday of the month to stay in tune. But I don't think going door to door is going to get you really a whole lot.
They're also live streamed.
Exactly, live stream. Yes, yeah.
Council President Peckinpaugh?
Well, transparency is a word that comes up every 4 years. It doesn't come up 2 years into the term. Nobody is worried about being elected to a position 2 years. But when it comes time for an election, everybody the other side normally starts talking about transparency. But I would say that we have one of the most transparent councils that we've ever had. I know myself, I do not believe. If somebody wants to tell me I'm wrong and I've let them down, that's fine. I do not believe I've ever not answered an email, not answered a phone call, not answered a text, or directly talked to them yet. I imagine Lynn is the same way. I imagine Ed will be the same way. I talked to a friend, a guy that went to school with Lynn and I the other day, and we were talking, about people, and he said, I don't think anybody living around me even knows who their council person is. And I said, well, they only really know, or they're only really concerned who their council person is when there's a problem. And then they'll find out. But if I went out, or if Lynn and I went out, or if Ed is elected, he goes out and he has a meeting. He says, hey, I'm going to be over here at such and such a place to talk to you about what you want the council to do or what your needs are. You know how many people would show up? Not many.
No, that was tried in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so So transparency is a nice word, but most of the time a person will be transparent and then not transparent, because there's some people that are throwing that word around right now honestly aren't very transparent themselves. So, but
what do you mean? You got to expand on that. If you say that part, we have to explore the path as to what you're trying to say.
Well,
we don't do bank booking.
I mean, now you want me to talk for the next hour, don't you? but I'll give you an example.
I said we don't have time limits, but
I'll give you an
does
example.
Go to bed.
The Republican mayoral candidate, he said at the forum for the mayors, and he also said on an interview he did on Facebook that he had a picture of. He first said a city employee pumping gas from a city-owned gas pump. Okay, then when he was doing the interview on Facebook, he said, I've got a picture of an elected official pumping gas from a city-owned gas pump. Well, now you'd say elected official, that narrows it down. There's only 10 of us. Okay, there's a city judge, clerk treasurer, mayor, and the council members.
It's a 1 in 10 chance it's you.
Right. Well, I'm saying it's not me, and I don't think it's Lynn. But anyway, all I'm saying is, if you're a good American, you're a good citizen, and you got a picture of wrongdoing going on, you should have turned that picture in a long time ago. So that's not very transparent. All right. And I can go on with other things too, but I don't think we've got the time for all that.
All right.
The mayor candidates will be in here next week.
Yeah, that's right. It's a great way to preview November
bring it
2nd.
on. You could hold it up in front of the camera.
I'm saying we got an extra microphone if you want to come help.
Oh, I'd be glad to. Lynn will.
Yeah.
Dakota would like the night off. He can do security. So, do you guys have any commentary on the? We've talked about it. It's not really in the notes, but I think we've talked about it throughout the course of the other episodes. So we'd probably be derelict in our duties not to talk about. My understanding is that there's about an $8 million shortfall in this year's budget regarding health insurance funds, and that's the big part of our conversation last week with the clerk treasurer candidates. Lynn, we can start with you if you want to help explain the status of where things are and what voters should know.
Well, that $8 million, the first thing people need to know, we pay our bills. We don't have any outstanding bills with insurance premiums or things like that. We basically, the city owes themselves the money because we're self-insured. We know there's a problem, but again, like I said before, the budget is a moving target. I mean, we set a budget every year, but for instance, like with the whole water thing, you just don't know what's going to happen. And illness, and since we are self-insured, we don't know how that's going to run. There might be years that we have zero, catastrophic injuries or surgeries or whatever. There'll be good years and there'll be bad years. It's a tough one. I mean, I know we're working with Baker Tilly right now. I've been talking with the mayor about a way to resolve that. It will get resolved eventually, but it's going to take some time. Now Rex sets in on the finance committee, so he's a little more privy to some information, than what I get. But I'm sure I feel confident that it's going to get resolved.
All right, and for the others, any commentary on the budgeting process and the $8 million shortfall?
Well, first on the budgeting process is screwed up. Now, not screwed up necessarily because of our clerk treasurer and our mayor, but screwed up just because of the way the state does it. Because the clerk treasurer by law, and the mayor by law are responsible for setting the budget. They set the budget and they have to send it in to the Indiana Department of Finance. So they send that in, and we get it back, and we'll get it back. I don't know, we got it in front of us this time, maybe Wednesday or Thursday before we had to vote on it the first time. And when we did have to, and there were some council people had questions, and so we tabled it. Well, then we had to have 2 readings, and then we have a special meeting Monday night to get the 3rd reading in. But they do not give you, as a council, really very much time to look at that and work on that. Now, I plan next year to try to get us to make, if I am reelected, I plan to try to get us to make some changes in our procedure that may give us a couple of weeks more to at least look at it and maybe get our input. But
it's an annual budget.
Yes, annual budget. So we have to vote on it, but we don't. That's another thing. People do not realize we are a third-class city. We are different than the county. We are different than a second-class city or Indianapolis. And they'll see the county council having budget hearings and bringing all their department heads in front of them and getting the lowdown. That doesn't happen in a third-class city. A third-class city is what they call a mayor-driven model. And so that's why, we do not have nearly the input on the budget that
You guys say yes or no?
yeah, more or less, yes.
Yeah.
Now we do.
You have control over,
we
like,
want
the
some money
riverboat
in the
funds
budget
and
for
things.
Main Street, and we've been asking for 2 or 3 years, and we finally were able to get that money in the budget. But when it comes down to it, when we vote on the budget, we could, if we wanted to, Lynn could make a motion, I could second it, and we could say we're going to take the $50,000 on this line out of the budget. The only thing that means is the city's $50,000 less money, because you can't take it and take it from one place and put it somewhere else. It just floats off back to the county or the state. Now, let me talk just a minute about the insurance deficit. In the paper yesterday, a guy that obviously has been listening to Mr. Morgan, yesterday or day before, but anyway, he wrote that the city is overdrawn in the insurance. We are not overdrawn. If I am overdrawn at my bank, it means I've written a check and somebody's cashed the check and I don't have money to cover it. Well, we're not overdrawn. All we are is in that one particular account. We have used money out of that account to pay for something somewhere else, and now we've got to fill that up. There's some people use a budgetary process at home where they put money in envelopes. They may have an envelope labeled car payment and one labeled new roof and all this. And basically, we went over. We needed the money for something else. I guess the mayor felt like we needed the money for something else, and money was more or less moved out of the roof fund over here. And so now we don't have very much or no money in our roof fund. So now we got to refill the roof fund, and we are working with Baker Tilly, and we are basically making progress. I believe that deficit really, if I understood right from our clerk treasurer, is actually a little under $7 million now. And some of that
it's
has
like 6 something. I
yeah,
saw.
and some of that has to do with things that Baker Tilly has told us where we were able to find. We had money somewhere else that really was not making an impact or not really being used, that would leave us with leave us more in the black at the end of the year. We were able to pull that money over in the insurance fund. There are a lot of places that I guess we can do that because they seem to feel like, I know the Republican candidate, I think he said it because he'd like to win and then serve maybe 2 terms before he tries to run for the House of Representatives or Senate like his hopes are. But anyway, he says it's going to take maybe 8 to 12 years. Well, I think it's going to take us 3 or 4 years if we.
I know on last week's episode we had the clerk treasurer candidates on, and Ashley Huffman, she works in the clerk's office now, mentioned that in the next year's budget, the mayor had allocated $3 million more to go towards that, a little less than 7. So,
right, and we'll keep. We've talked about, at least 3 or 4 prongs in the approach to get this deficit down. It's not just going to be more budget money or, increasing the premiums way up and hurting our employees. It's going to be a little here and a little there and a little here, and hopefully then make a big impact totally.
If there are changes made to the insurance, say, hey, going forward, spouses aren't covered, or whatever tools there are, mechanisms that there are to say, hey, if a spouse has insurance available, like this happened to me in my private sector job at times, you have to take the insurance from work or your spouse's job. Is the council have input on that, or is that the executive?
The executive mainly decides that in negotiations with the unions.
So some of that is locked in.
Now, we would have some. We can express our opinion, and sometimes our opinion is valued. Like spousal carve-out. I don't know that for us, spousal carve-out would really, I'm against it. I don't know that it would really make that much of an impact. I don't want to, impact our employees. It would make a big impact on our employees.
There's probably a $50,000 study you could pay for to find out.
So probably. And we pay Baker Tilly to help us figure some of that out.
And along with that, one of our council's point of emphasis that we really want to address is employee retention. I mean, guys, employee retention's a problem. I mean, our people work hard for the money, and we try and be fair. And part of that insurance that they have, that's part of their package, and it's a big deal. And we can't afford to lose employees, or it's too expensive to retrain. There's not a big pool out there, so a lot of our departments are running 1 and 2 and 3 men short to begin with. So employee retention is huge for us, and that insurance package has a big deal.
And we voted to increase, like our police, fire, and EMS, we voted to increase their longevity pay. Basically, the reason we did it was so we could keep them here in Newcastle, because once you train a policeman, it costs you about $30,000 to get them on the road. And then now they're fair game to anybody else that wants one, because they've been to the academy and they can do lateral transfers. So we got to work hard to keep employees.
Ed Hill, we've been talking a lot on the other side of the room and haven't heard from you. Commentary on the budget side?
That's something I'm going to have to learn a lot more about. I trust Baker Tilly. I think that they'll give us a good solutions to this, and I don't think this is a local, just Newcastle problem. This is a national problem.
Yeah,
I think anybody that's self-insured is having the same issues, no matter where they're at. But I think it will work. I'm encouraged that there's going to be $3 million put toward that next year. Yeah, because that'll do a long. And I agree, the timeline's probably quicker than 8 years.
So Ed, tell us about if you're elected to the city council, what your main priorities are for the office.
Right now, it's housing. We talked about increasing the tax base. And I think if we can bring the neighborhoods up, a few years ago I actually ran 2 phases of it, but it was the blight elimination program, and the whole idea was to stabilize neighborhoods, take out the blight, so that the property values didn't drop too much. But I think the next step is to do the sidewalks to bring that up and try to bring pride to these neighborhoods. There's a little bit of a disconnect right now, I think, with a lot of people that are more inner city, and I would like to see that changed. That's kind of a passion. With Hope, we're working on a transitional housing for women, and those type of things are important to me.
So both the rehabbing of the city's core, but also new builds. So but I would like it. Personally, I would rather have it, and there's not a whole lot of places you can do this, but I would like to see it more in city instead of keep pushing it out, because that infrastructure, trying to push water out, sewer, bring it in. It's the farther out you go, the tougher it gets. I mean, there's talk. I mean, they were talking back when I hired in about putting in a water station out on I can't think of the name of the farm. It's out on 38.
By the old FOP shooting range,
yeah. And talking about putting a water plant.
Mary Wyland, I think.
Wyland, yeah. And they purchased that property to put new wells in, but it's to extend it out to that area out there. Same with sewer, I mean, there was a brief talk. It wasn't very serious, I don't think, but there was talk about having a separate sewage treatment that's out, that's out there. And those are so expensive, and it's just so expensive to push your infrastructure out. That's why I thought, if you can concentrate within the city, I think that would be a good thing. It would be a good thing.
If I can just kind of add to that, and Ed, I know exactly what you're talking about. What we have in Newcastle is no different from a lot of other manufacturing communities. Okay, years and years ago, when Chrysler and Maxwell and all of them employed several thousand people, what we have is a lot of 5 and 6 room houses inside city limits. Kids today, young families today, when they graduate high school, college, and move out, they're not going backwards. I mean, they don't go backwards. They don't want a 4 or 5 or 6 room house inside city limits.
They don't want one bathroom.
No, exactly. So what we have is there's approximately 9,300 homes inside city limits. And we're about a 40% rental market. So what you have are those 4 and 5 and 1 bedroom, 2 bath homes that nobody wants. So what's happening is out of state investors are buying those, and that's what's creating a lot of your blight.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, they
Absolutely.
don't care.
We fought that with the blight elimination.
We've got to find a way to fight that, outsourcing of investors like that,
Yeah, I think-
because they don't care about our community.
Yeah, on the land bank, we pushed the county to, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the county is now offering it a live auction, like they used to do it in the courthouse.
You're trying to get rid of online auctions because the online auctions, people would buy them.
Right,
And sometimes they'd be looking at a picture of the property.
10 years old.
Like 10 years old. There's a nice house there.
Sure.
And they don't know that it's either one, it's burned out, or two, the house isn't there, hasn't been there for 5 or 6 years. And it takes, and people get mad about this. And I mentioned this before on the podcast, but they get mad because this house or this property is sitting there and it's, it looks bad or whatever. But there's a process in place that you have to go through to get the property back. And people don't like it when the property looks like that. But if the government came for your house, you'd want the process there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the land banks I know we just got a list from the county commissioners today of a bunch of properties they want to unload on the land bank. So we try to make sure people come in and apply. We have to vote, and then we have to look and see what are their actual properties. Like most of them live in town. A lot of them are extending their own property. They live next door,
Right.
in a bigger yard. We look and see how they treat the properties that they do have in town, and sort of trying to fight that out of town.
Yeah.
So you said
been a huge-
40% of the properties in town in the city limits are not owner occupied.
Correct.
The
They're-
industrial area, they're between A and I and
Yep.
14th. That's probably a 60%.
Oh, I was looking at Beacon, and there's 1 or 2 people that own most of the city. I mean, it's unbelievable to know. You see the same name on property after property. I think the guy that bought Firestone several years ago bought it because he saw a factory there and he thought he was getting a factory and bought Firestone, and he got
he come to town and saw it just in a rubble. He tried to walk away from it, but
He bought an EPA disaster.
exactly.
yeah.
That's a big challenge.
It is. It is huge.
Housing's a big challenge, but it's one that we need to find a solution for and move forward.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like new builds on those sites aren't happening, right? It's the renovation. It's the renovation and adapting them to modern living.
Habitat's doing quite a few.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of good work in town. And they generally have to have 2 adjacent lots because the 32-foot wide lots don't work modern.
Last couple of years, I've gotten involved in buying real estate and remodeling. And Jeremiah, you mentioned it. If I buy a 1-bedroom home, first thing I'm looking for, where's that second bathroom going? I mean, that is just, 2 bath, 3 bedroom is a must to move. And so, it can be done, but it's got to take some people interested in improving our community, to get that done.
Yeah. Even on the south side of town, right? You've got, if you look at the industrial area, you've got the 6-bedroom, 2-story home. And on the south side of town, you've got the 50s ranch. It's still 2 to 3 bedrooms, tiny little 1-car garage and a 1-car bath. To find the 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom house is a unicorn in the community. There's just very few of them to work with.
Rex talked about, the mayor's trying to get some, infrastructure out to the north. We have to do that because that issue of our little 5-room houses in town, it's not going away. We've got to bring families in to grow our community. We've got to find housing for young families.
So Ed's top and affordable housing so that people can come back. Chris Staten, formerly Chris Guffey, he moved to Delaware County and won't let it go until he can afford to buy a house back here in Henry County. So we have to keep that banging that drum for him. So Ed talked about affordable housing or housing in the city's core. Biggest priority for you, Rex, going into the next 4 years if you get to stay on the city council?
Well, I think number 1 priority is making sure we get our insurance under control. I mean, I think that's important for a lot of reasons. the better we're able to control that, the better we're going to be able to compensate our employees. We'll free up some budgetary money for some other things once we get that under control. I also think we need to work hard on code enforcement. I shouldn't make it like we don't, because our building inspector does, but we need to keep working hard on that to try to get the housing we have to be in as good a condition as possible. I also think we need to keep banging away at sidewalks and make sure we keep, we've got it to the point where our streets are pretty good and we get potholes filled at a reasonable rate in the spring, and we've got to keep that up. I think a lot of it is maintaining infrastructure, and then we've got to keep the momentum going on the excitement that's building in the downtown area. I'm really excited about the $2 million. I mean, it was another study, but we caught some heck about it on the internet because we approved $50,000 for a Main Street, a study of Main Street. Well, that's when we approved that study, we put ourselves in the running for a $2 million grant that the lieutenant governor came over here to the castle the other day and said we won. So I'm interested to see what that does for us. But I think there's a lot of momentum going, and we've just got to keep it going.
So same for you, Lynn Perdew. The idea of, okay, in the next 4 years, what's your main goal as a city council person?
Boy, pick one. There's a lot of them, but pick one. And I think the one that comes to the top of mind right now for me is employee retention. Our citizens deserve to feel safe, to feel like if they're in time of need for emergency services, they're going to be there, whether it be fire, first aid system. They need to feel confident that those services are going to be there and be there with qualified people. So there's been discussion, and I don't think it's come from the folks that are in this race, but I want to make sure that we discuss what people are talking about. Is EMS not providing certain services now for the city of Newcastle, like ambulance transports? And is there any service that was discontinued or limited now that wasn't maybe 6 months ago or a year ago? Go ahead, Rex.
Well, EMS has become less of a taxi service. Let's just put it that way, because we are not doing the transports that we used to do. Now, part of the reason for that is the money, but part of the reason is there's a shortage nationally of EMTs and paramedics, and so again, it goes back to like Lynn was talking, retention of employees, but we're having a hard time having enough qualified people to cover all the things we want to cover, just simply to deal with emergencies. And right now, there are people that with relatively minor things that would get an ambulance to come to the hospital, pick them up, and take them home. I've been in there for 2 knees, 2 hips, and a shoulder. I never had an ambulance come and take me home. Somebody always, most people should have
a member of the community taking care of that part of transport.
But anyway, so that's really what we've taken out. We still, if somebody, and I think the opposition, and when I say that, Lynn is not the opposition in that respect. He's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, but he's not the opposition in that respect. But the opposition wants people to believe that when they pick up the phone and they call 911, there's a chance maybe nobody comes. Well, I was driving down the street the other day and I heard the sirens, and I looked back and here's the ambulance, and here's the Cherokee or Durango or whatever it is that a paramedic's driving. And if need be, we'd have had the guys out of the fire. So if somebody calls 911 in Newcastle, not only Newcastle, Henry County. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing people do. We serve just about anybody in Henry County that needs help. And we do it quite well. Our ambulances, when somebody gets in the back of our ambulance, they are really in a better place than they are when they get to the emergency room. not because our emergency room isn't great, it is, but they are having direct one-on-one attention from a very trained individual, and the equipment we have in the back of those ambulances is second to none. Tomorrow at 3, there's going to be an announcement down at the EMS building about something very special that's going to happen in Newcastle. It's going to take us, and we're up high in the level of our ability to serve people. It's going to take us to another level.
All right. So this is our one really fun question we have, because you guys get to decide ordinances, right? As the city council, you are the ordinance kings. If you were king for a day and you could change one thing in the city, this is something we've asked everybody. What would you do? What would you change about the city or the way we do things? And we can start with we'll start with Lynn and work our way back around the room. But king for a day, what do you? And
money was no option.
Yeah, you can. It's
a pot of gold.
Maybe it's the low hanging fruit, or what that you could just do it right now. You don't need other council person's agreement. You don't have to have the mayor on board. You can just do it. What are we fixing? What are you doing?
You know what? Just to check some things off. We have plenty of jobs. I'm not, our economic development is aggressive, solid. But for me, if I had the money, sidewalks and curbs. I'm a walker. I'm a heart patient, so I walk every day all over town. And some of our sidewalks are absolutely a death trap.
I did a study on them. They're bad.
I mean, they're bad.
Yeah.
I mean, if nothing more.
And right, the city won't come in and replace a sidewalk necessarily. It's a partnering thing.
Yeah.
And if you've got 40% rental property, whatever, those guys are not going to come in and replace the sidewalk or do anything about it or maintain it.
No. So for me, it would be sidewalks and curbs. Yeah.
Once again, that making the community more livable.
Yes,
yeah.
And that attracts more people wanting to move, more business moving to town. It's just it's a perception that, hey, we care. This is our community. We're buying into it. We care.
All right, Councilman Peckinpaugh.
Well, first I want to say the only problem with this question is that once you answer this question, then you open up a whole new can of worms, because once it gets enforced, it's going to create greater hardship on somebody. But anyway, I agree with Lynn. If we just had all kinds of money, I would want to see us have better sidewalks and curbs. Now if we had all kinds of money, I'd want to see us have better sidewalks and curbs. We have talked about, and it may still get done, but we've talked about passing an ordinance more or less that says when a property changes hands, the sidewalk has to be inspected, and if it's not up to code, then it has to be replaced. Now, if we made them do that, then that person who owns that rental would then fill out the paperwork and come to the city and say, we'd like you to help us with this sidewalk. So they could, it wouldn't cost them the whole.
They'd get their $500.
Yeah, they get some money out of it. But we could do that. But otherwise, it's hard to mandate that, because we couldn't just say everybody's going to fix their sidewalk this year, is what I'm saying. But if we had the money as a city, I'd love to just go out and start fixing sidewalks and curbs. I think I'd like to mandate some other home improvements and different things like that. But that would probably be number one.
All right. Ed Hill, king for the day. What are you fixing?
I agree with the sidewalks and curbs.
This is sidewalk night tonight.
Yeah. Well, also just to incentivize contractors or developers to take care of housing. If they have to tear down houses to build 3-bedroom houses, then we would, if we had the money, no object, we could incentivize that and make it worth their while to build that.
32 houses in Henry County last year. If we look next door in Hancock, I know it's Indianapolis, right? And it's growing out there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to check Stats Indiana, and I bet their number is more than 32.
Let's set a goal for 60 next year. And let's come back next year at this time and see if we have more.
Make it 64, and we can say it was 100% increase in housing.
2009,
901.
I was going to say,
I
was going to say, is there a comma? Because
that 901 single family, 1,100 because they actually had 185 plus family, so they had 1,100 new units, but it was probably 2,000 new residences built.
Yeah,
we had two more than one. We had 2 duplexes built last year, and then 32 single family. Dakota had to run, so he doesn't have his king for the day. But I will say that if I could fix one thing instantly, I'm going to 14th and Vine, and I'm fixing the riser that's missing. Every time I turn right onto Vine Street from 14th, coming up from 103, I hit a pothole. It's not a pothole; it's just a drain. City drain.
The manhole.
The manhole.
Cover.
There needs to be a riser,
Now I believe
and I don't know how we fix it.
Risers came up with the last.
the mayor talked about that last time.
Well,
That particular
every
one,
time
though.
I hit one, I've got him on speed dial, either Barker or the mayor. What are we doing here? And their answer is, well, that's really the city's responsibility. Then I said, let's get the risers in because this is a problem. And I'm going to make a suggestion. If we don't put risers in, let's at least paint them white or orange.
you
so I can see them.
I'm just going to get a big cone and put it in that one, so I stop hitting it. I'm going to do a partial lane, citizens partial lane closure.
My
They did that
corner
on
is
3.
11th in Indiana. I turn off of 11th to go down the hill on Indiana, and
Hugh
that
Avenue's
corner
got
right
the
there.
monsters too.
One other thing I'd like to see get done is, and it's an NDOT thing, I think, more than a city thing, but down at the bottom of Indiana Avenue, I mean, we get some tremendous flooding there. And it was the mayor and Dave Barker both brought it up, but NDOT just doesn't seem to be concerned about it. You know,
They're supposed to fix that with the repave, aren't they?
well, I don't know if
That was
Dave
was
thinks
discussed.
it will.
So I was at the Big Bundy Auditorium meeting where the state announced their plan, and they said it's not in their scope right now to fix it. The mayor gave his speech, and he kind of inferred that he was still hoping it might be in their scope, but they didn't admit that it was yet. So
I will say Dave and the mayor do keep on those type of things. Yeah, pretty good.
As a runner and a cross country coach, curbs and sidewalks for days. I mean, I could tell you a spot. There's a sidewalk. I know I live in near where Lynn lives. There's a spot where there's just a segment of the sidewalk missing.
Gone.
It's just not even there, and there's just a hole there. Like it literally looks like somebody stole a slab of concrete. So yeah, like I run in the road because the sidewalks in a lot of the town are not suitable to run on. So
Zach became the cross country coach this year, so I started paying attention to the cross country team, and I'll drive down Main Street, and I will see
they
those
run on
kids.
the sidewalk. They're nuts.
I will see those kids running and crossing intersections, and I just think, oh my god. They cross Bundy and Main, and I think there's got to be a crossing guard. It's insanity what the cross country kids do. They're all animals.
No kids were hit this year.
It's another successful season. All right, so this is where we get into final thoughts, where we talk to everybody. We say, hey, are you raising money? You going door to door? Is there anything we forgot or priorities you guys have that you want to bring up? We go in a counterclockwise manner, so we're going to start with Rex Peckinpaugh and work our way around the room. And this is your closing statement, so to speak, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I've never been very good at raising money, except when I've got a bunch of kids and I'm trying to get money for them to go to camp or something like I did back when I was wrestling coach. So I'm not much on raising money. I've been doing a little door-to-door, certainly placing signs. I'm sure you've seen one or two of them out there in the street, and just talking to people. I used to go door-to-door a lot, but what I found was, and you've experienced it tonight, I would get in their house and we'd sit down and we'd start talking about their kids and Aunt Joe and all this stuff. And before it was done, I might get to 2 or 3 houses in 3 hours and it was over. So I don't do as much of that, but I enjoy talking to people. And anybody can stop and talk to me anytime, and I'll answer any question anybody's got. And I know the other guys are that way, but I've talked way too much tonight, so I'll just let you go.
All right, Lynn Perdew. Final thoughts. Anything we've left out, or we need to clean up, or left undone?
No, I think a lot of good things were covered tonight. A lot of good input, and I look forward to a good, clean, fair election.
All right, Zach Burcham, you've been. You always shine in this segment.
Oh man, I don't know. There's one thing. Well, I could rant again. I went on a rant last week. But one thing I will say, when you see stuff on Facebook and about
it's about Baker Park.
I went on a rant about last week about Baker Park because some of the opponents have been painting Baker Park as an unsafe place to be that they can't take their children to, and I spend a lot of time at Baker Park, and the only gang I've run into is the disc golf gang, because if people, the most, I think, predicted in terms of how busy it is. Like, I think people knew when the skate park was built, the skate park was going to be huge. The disc golf course at Baker, The Rock, is incredibly busy. And like I said, the park's really busy. It's so busy with nice citizens who are enjoying the brand new playground, the disc golf course, the skate park, the pool, all the other stuff that some other people act like we don't have out there. I don't know who can cause that much trouble because there's too many law-abiding citizens having a great time. But the other thing I was going to say is when you see stuff on Facebook, don't assume the worst, because for all the people that are in Newcastle, trash schedule is normal through the month of November, and they posted that and they got attacked because they're doing trash on Thanksgiving. And they're like, oh, they're making these people work on Thanksgiving. And I was like, yeah, because they want to, because then they get Friday off. And they don't have to go. They can, and I had the fortune of Mr. Walker was my bus driver for the last 2 weeks for cross country. We got caught up on all kinds of fun stuff. But he's like, yeah, they're off by 10, and they have Friday off, and they choose to do it. So like people just assume that like the cities as slave drivers,
then they can
people
go
do
pick
stuff.
They can go pick up a shift at the Walmart on Thursday night,
or do whatever. Who wants? Yeah, I mean they probably
for
could.
Black Friday.
Yeah, work security for Black Friday. but yeah, so just don't assume the worst. But yeah, still, by the way, Baker Park still pretty safe. Another week of not hearing about anything happening at Baker Park. So yeah, I did go on a rant about that last week, and somebody tried to call me out. So Mark Shawnor, try it again, buddy. But I haven't heard about any issues.
I need some demonstrated proof of these gangs at Baker Park.
Apparently, one situation I've been made aware of and I heard about was that there was somebody who brandished a firearm from out of town, and the local kids were like, ew, and called the cops. And the cops came and dealt with it, and it sounds like, oh, that's the way it works. Yeah. Like you can't control every single person. That's how you get weird rules, like you can't bring ash trees. Now we have no ash trees left, but we still got weird rules. You can't just freak out over every little thing that happens. So,
Ed Hill, it's been our pleasure to get to know you.
Thank you.
This has been fun.
It's been fun.
Like you, I'm an engineering brain. I work in the road construction industry, so when they bash in dot, it triggers me, but I suffer through it.
I've had to defend an engineer or two in my time.
I'm also not an engineer, but I've done my fair share of drawing stuff. But I don't have I have a business degree. I do not have an engineering degree. Dakota said you were an engineer, and I said no, that's stolen valor. I don't want a PE stamp to save my life. So, is there anything we left out? Things, the priorities for you that we didn't get to, or things we've left undone?
No, not really. I'm very proud of this town. I'm proud of where it's headed. I want to be a part of it. I am outside of government now, but I do a lot of things in the community, and I just want to see. I want to see things move forward. I agree with Zach. The golf, man, I never saw that coming, but it is unbelievable how that's out there. It makes me want to try.
There are like. In a given day, if it's nice, I know there's one day that a bunch of them get together, but at any given time, there's like 8 to 10 people playing.
Now hear me out.
Nice afternoon.
If we start charging them $10 a piece to play a round of disc golf, we'll be out of insurance debt by the end of the year.
We need to check those frisbees for ash boards.
Yeah, boards. Yeah, beetles.
And then
maybe they have to have Newcastle approved disc.
You got to have a Newcastle disc golf sticker to be able to get your season pass.
Some from the Pointer Brothers shop, just make them look good right everything. Pointer Brothers, but yeah.
All right. So from my side, I will remind everybody the at-large race is very different. We have 3 people running for 2 spots. If you go in and you vote straight ticket, you will not have voted for any of these individuals in the at-large race. Straight ticket does absolutely nothing. You have to pick them by name. So if you go in and you say, hey, I want to vote for all the Republicans, it will not cast a vote in this race at all. If you say, I want to vote for all the Democrats, not going to vote for anybody at all. You manually have to go in and select the 1 or 2 candidates that you want to cast a vote for. You can undervote it. If you just want to vote for 1, you can. If you want to vote for 2, you can do that. Unfortunately, you can't vote for all 3, so you're going to have to pick. But that's the uniqueness of an at-large race. With that, we say thank you guys so much for being here. We appreciate you being a part of the candidate series. Wylands Flowers and Slick Pickle Sanitation, y'all are awesome to help us make this happen, and the extra effort that goes into to this. I'm so excited. The series is almost over. 1 episode left. The scheduling of this is my personal nightmare. I'm so happy there have been a lot of events, but every other community organization said, hey, you know what we want to do?
Thursday
nights. And I went, oh, my God. everybody's scheduling stuff on Thursdays. So getting everybody to move their schedules around and to get through the door. I think we have all but one elected official has been able to come through. Next week, November 2nd, will be the final one of the series, and we are expecting both Mayor Greg York and Republican candidate, former county councilman Clay Morgan, to be here. That will wrap it up. We say thank you all so much, and we will catch you next Thursday night.